You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
TIAA is on a mission. Why? Because 54% of Black Americans don't have enough savings to retire. So in collaboration with big-name artists like Wyclef Jean, TIAA released Paper Right, new music inspiring a new financial future. With 100% of streaming sales going to a nonprofit that teaches students how to invest. Stream Paper Right now and help close the gap.
Hello and good day, good people. I hope you are doing great out there. I'm bringing you another episode today, and I am super stoked about it. Today, I am talking to Mitch Stark from Silent Planet. If you are not familiar with that band, I highly suggest you sliding over to your streaming platform of choice and familiarizing yourself. You're going to be very, very, very glad you did. I don't have too much business to get into this week, but I do want to let you know that the Tone Mob text chat is back. I know it's been offline for probably 2 years or so. What happened was the provider I was using to facilitate that had to raise their prices significantly. We're talking like over 4 times what I was paying. It's some governmental regulation stuff that you don't really care about, but all that to say is the plug got pulled on it basically overnight. I didn't even have a chance to send off a final like, hey, the text chat is going away, people. I know this has been a lot of fun, but it's got to go away. I didn't even get a chance to do that. All of a sudden, it was just radio silence. So forgive me. I'm sorry to everybody who was enjoying that platform. There were several hundred of you on there. But I bring a bit of good news. The text chat is back. I was able to get back with that company and negotiate prices for at least the next year or so that I could actually afford. So it's a lot more expensive than what I was doing before, but I think it was one of the coolest things outside of the podcast itself that I got to do, which is just text directly with all of you. And the thing about it is I do it way, way differently than your standard text marketing, quote unquote, person might. So where you might just get like discount codes or some random broadcast things, that's not what this is about. This is about having a conversation. So yes, I would send out random broadcast things to everybody, but I made sure to always try to respond to the best of my abilities. And we would actually have conversations on there that maybe had nothing to do with the podcast, maybe had nothing to do with gear, but it was actually something I would use to communicate directly with everyone over there. I genuinely have never heard of or seen anybody else do it in the way that I was doing it. I'm not saying that nobody was, I just am not aware of it. So I understand if you're not interested, but if you are, the number for that is 503-751-8577. That's 503-751-8577. And that will be in the show notes, so don't go swerving off the road to write that down or anything. But if you send a text to that number, you will get a direct response from an automated system that will opt you into it. And if you decide you don't want to hear from that number or me anymore, then you simply text stop and it will automatically take you off the list. So no harm, no foul. It doesn't cost you any money. And it's a great way to stay in touch with me if that's something you want to do. So shoot a text over there if you'd like to participate. That would be really cool. And if not, well, that's fine too. I'm easy to get a hold of on other platforms. So let's get into this episode with Mitch Stark from Silent Planet. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland. With me today, I have Mitch Stark from Silent Planet. What's going on, dude?
Hi, how are you?
You know, I'm doing all right. I thought I was in for a chill day here, but that changed in the last 20 minutes, so now it'll be back to my usual running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So, you know.
Oh, no.
Fortunately, none of it's too bad. It's just like, yeah, I went from, I won't have anything to do after this podcast is over. And I should have known that wasn't going to hold. But it's all good. How you been?
Good, man. Just home from tour now. Slowly reacclimating to life at home. Mm-hmm. Starting to write again and make some preparations for a tour that we have in the works. A secret tour. But yeah,
secret tour. Ooh.
Yeah, just getting back to regular life, it always takes me a little bit of time to readjust to not waking up in a van and I have dishes I have to do, and I'm not just eating takeout all the time. And
Right.
got to start going to the gym again and not eating like
Sure.
So yeah, just starting to get back into the groove of home life and trying to stay creative and yeah.
That is it as much of an adjustment the other way. I knew early on, listeners have heard me say this a million times, but I love music. It's an essential part of my life, but I knew I was not cut out for touring life from a very young age. I hate road trips. I was like, no, I'm not built for it. Not tough enough. But is it difficult to adjust coming off of tour or going on tour? Like, obviously coming off is an obvious adjustment, or are you kind of like ready to go every time?
I feel like I kind of was made to do it. And like you said, yeah, it's not for everybody. Not everybody is good at sitting in the car for 12 hours at a time and sleeping in a moving vehicle and all of that. But for me, no, it's always kind of easy. I usually am looking forward to it. And I will say it's definitely a little stressful getting up and going when a tour is starting. The first little week of rehearsals, making sure everything works, which nothing ever works. It's crazy. Sure. Everything's set up one way. You go on tour, play a bunch of shows, come home, relax for a month, go back out on tour again, and all of a sudden none of the gear works.
Sure.
So the first few days getting into it are stressful and difficult in that sense. But as for the mental switch of lifestyles, no, I actually kind of love it. Particularly international stuff, because
oh really?
Yeah, I mean that's extra stressful to get up and go do those things. Anytime there's an airplane involved and getting all of your gear onto the airplane,
that's terrifying.
It's crazy. Yeah, but waking up in a new place every day in Europe or somewhere in Asia or just I know I'm cut out for it, because I seriously I dream about that. Not even playing the shows, just like I love being sort of transient and moving around, and it's a weird way to live life for sure, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, I feel that. I do like travel. I do like seeing new places. It's just like the actual grind of it all. I was like, there's no way. There's no way I could do it. But I am glad that there are people in this world who can, because live music is one of my very favorite things. And if people weren't willing to tour, then I wouldn't get to see a whole lot of it. So, it's different, one of those different strokes for different folks things for sure. But did you always know this is what you wanted to do? Like, let's go back to the early days, when you were a wee lad coming up thinking about playing in a band. Did you know this is what you were going to do?
Yeah, I did. It's funny. It's a really good story, actually, and it's funny that you brought this up, because I remember telling my mom when I was about 8 or 9. I had just started playing guitar. I wasn't anything special on the guitar, but I just loved music so much, and she was like, "Oh, now that you're playing guitar, you're gonna join a big band and get famous and buy me a house and everything." And I was like, "No, Mom, I'm probably going to live in a van. I might have like an apartment, I don't know. Probably not going to be able to buy you a house." And it's going to be hard, and it's going to be, I had no concept at the time of what grinding was. But I knew that it was going to be hard work, and that it was going to be mostly traveling and, playing for 30 minutes a day. But then the rest of the time was just kind of hard work and behind the scenes stuff. Anyways, yeah, I always knew that I wanted to do this, and I just got very lucky and kind of one of those people that didn't have a fallback plan at all. I still don't. I'm just kind of like all in this, and hopefully it continues to pay off. But yeah.
How long have you been full-time as a musician?
approaching 10 years now.
That's what I was thinking. It has to be at least that ballpark. So I've been familiar with you guys for quite a while. So I was trying to think 10 years ago, the world was a very different place. Obviously some things never changed in the band life, like the touring and the writing and all that is still crucial. But 10 years ago, it's not like you had to worry about what was going on Instagram. Have you as a band changed your approach over that time frame to just like quote unquote marketing your band or interacting with your fans, etc.?
Yeah. It's really weird to be alive right now because of that. Like and it's just like the technology is increasing in scope, like exponentially, and it's constantly changing. So yeah, I mean, when I first started touring in the band, we definitely had an Instagram, and like it seemed then that the whole name of the game was like make cool t-shirts and post on Instagram in black and white. And that was like, then you're set. And then before long, it was like, no, now we need videos. And now Spotify is a thing. And we honestly were pretty slow to change. And we still kind of are. Because none of us in the band are like in our early 20s. None of us are like really TikTokers or anything like that. So trying to keep up with the caliber and quantity of content that's coming out from some of these other social media users and bands on social media is it's kind of daunting. It's definitely not something that comes naturally to any of us in the band, I don't think, especially me. But yeah, it is weird to be in a band that whole time and sort of see the world and industry around you kind of change a little bit. And yeah, we're trying though. We're on Patreon now, and we're doing pretty good at staying active with that. And that's been a really cool experience to be able to present some like not so serious, not so image concerned content to our core fans who are willing to join us on there, but more just like, here's an iPhone video of a demo that I made for the last record that didn't get on the album, or just stuff like that. But yeah, 10 years is a long time, and things do be changing these days pretty quickly.
Oh man, it's difficult, and it's part of my job to try to keep up with all that stuff. And even as somebody who is full time doing it, it's like, wow. Can it just pause for a moment and we can get our feet under us and figure out what reality is until like, oh, next week we're gonna be doing, I don't know, stickers or something. Like, just there's always some new thing, which is
let me catch up, please.
Yeah, let me just mentally wrap my mind around what happened last week. And
yes,
it's but it's not to complain. There's a lot worse things in this world than trying to keep up with social media is a relatively light burden compared to other things.
I always have to remind myself at the end of the day that like, hey, your living is to play music and to write music. And I mean, I wake up every day for the most part excited to go in my room and just try to write the next thing, and that's, I wouldn't trade that for anything. Trying to keep up with the younger generation on the internet is like a very small price to pay.
Yes,
to be able to do this for a living. So I definitely don't take it for granted.
Absolutely, there are obviously times where it gets frustrating, or you get mad at something, or there's some situation you don't want to be dealing with. But what I try to remind myself in those moments is, hey, remember when you were hanging upside down inside of an excavator covered in hydraulic oil? That was a lot worse than this. So chill. Like, it's not that bad.
Well, that sounds crazy.
Yeah, I was a heavy equipment mechanic for a long time. So I had to do all kinds of weird stuff. I had to refurbish a garbage compactor one time, like one that like drives through a landfill. That was disgusting. Like, that was horrible. Didn't like that at all. But yeah, somebody's got to do it. So what do you do?
I suppose, but man, well, kudos to you for, I mean, now you're doing something I presume you enjoy much more.
Yes. Yeah. I like the guitar industry a lot better than the heavy equipment industry for sure.
Than the garbage compactor industry.
Yeah, it's a lot more enjoyable for sure. I mean, I get to do things, I get to talk to people about things that I care about for a living. So
yeah,
I'm not mad about that at all. That's a
but kudos to the
be.
people. Kudos to the people working on heavy equipment, because powers the world, right?
For real, it really does.
Those people doing those jobs.
Yeah,
so,
it's
respect.
insanely important and overlooked still, even in this day and age when there's all this information out there. Those jobs are still like the silent ones that keep us being able to do what we do.
Right.
So switching gears a little bit, gears, haha. I want to get into some gear. What over the decade that you've been doing this, has your rig evolved? I'm assuming it has. Almost everyone has. So what did you start with, and where are you at now?
Yeah. I think similarly to the last topic of social media and just general internet content change, I've also been pretty slow to assimilate into modern technology when it comes to gear. But I'm catching up now. When I started, I was like exclusively 5150 block letter, like old 5150 head, and completely sold on the tube amp thing. I basically have always ran some version of a 5150. It's either the old block letter, or when that crapped out on me, I switched to the 5153. I had the 50 watt guy for many years, and my rig for the most part of our touring career has always been actual head and cab on stage, pedal board 4-cable method with, the typical things, Strymon Blue Sky, just some random delay pedals that I barely used. I mostly just use reverb, honestly. For a long time, I wasn't even using a tube screamer or anything. I was completely like doing things the wrong way. If you were to ask like one of my contemporaries, they'd be like, "Oh, that's so dumb. Why would you not do that? You need this, you need this, and you need that." I never ran a tube screamer. My tone was always, I was getting complimented on it all the time, and I thought it was funny because most of the time the people complimenting me were running Axe Effects or Kemper, or they'd have these big crazy patches and these IRs they get from the internet, and they would spend so much time on it, and then at the end of the show they would be like, "Man, I can't get my guitar to sound like yours." And I was just like, the irony of that, because I don't know anything really. I just have always used an amp. I turn up the mids probably more than I should. I have like almost no high end on the amp, and for whatever reason that always sounded best to me and to other people as well, I guess. Now flash forward in 2017, I think, 2017, 2018, I got my hands on a Helix, the floor unit, after I was recommended by a friend that I try it. And it took me forever to figure it out. Finally started using it live and made the transition from like, I only use real amps and cabs to now I'm totally direct and there's no stage sound. Everything is coming through my ears. And that was a big learning curve, and honestly more like a philosophical battle I had with myself. Like,
I get it.
I used to be the guy that wanted all real everything, and now I'm becoming the lazy guy who just wants to have everything on the ground with no other stuff. I shouldn't say lazy, but I guess maybe more just like practical. And once you start traveling a lot and, touring Japan and China and doing stuff like that, where the means of traveling change often. It's like sometimes you're on a train, sometimes you're on an airplane, sometimes you're packed into a Uber XL for several hours. Just like, man, I can't bring an amp head and cab with me, and I don't want to rely on random people to supply them for me. So I'm just going to take control of it and have something small. And now we're moving to neural. We're getting quad cortexes, and I'm about to just MIDI automate all of my effects changes and volume swells and pitch shifting and mutes, and I'm just going to go whole 9 yards. Completely opposite end of the spectrum from where I started.
Do you miss the 5150 and all that on stage at all, or are you over it?
I'm over it.
Wow, he's over it.
Yeah, a big transition. Once you spend years and years lugging that stuff around, and then you transition to something that's like this big on the floor that you press one button and 8 things happen. To me, there's no going back. And like I said, I'm not really a tone guy. So it's funny to have me on here because I can't talk about bias and what tubes I'm using and any of that. That's the farthest thing from me. I just know if I like how it sounds. But having gone digital like that, I can't tell a freaking difference at all. If I was watching a band live, blindfolded, I wouldn't know if it was real amps or digital. So if I can't tell, I'm going to assume that most of the people in the audience probably can't tell. The only people who are going to notice anything like that are like, tone experts, the Will Putneys of the world,
Right.
And that's a very small percentage of people. So I'm just going to save my back and save space in the trailer and just start carrying around a quad cortex and a rack shelf and call it a day.
It's a thing that I've noticed particularly with heavy bands, is almost everybody that I've interviewed I can't even think of any exceptions to this rule, really, has went that way. One form of it or another. Kempers, insert whatever it is here, Axe-Fx, Neural. They're doing one of those. And it is really just down to just that. I've been carrying half stacks my whole life. I'm tired of carrying half stacks around. And it's, for me, I'm spoiled. Like, I don't have to take anything anywhere. So I'm like, yes, give me the Ampeg refrigerator cab and everything, because it's going to stay in one spot for the rest of its life.
Sure.
It's not the same thing, right? So on one hand, I'm like, oh man, the real deal is so cool. And without the real deal, we wouldn't even have the digital thing. But from a practical standpoint, if I was touring all over the world, I guarantee you I'd be using one of those. There's just, I could maybe see myself using a small wedge or something to have some stage volume just for the feel of it, but maybe not. I might be able to get used to it. It's just, at the end of the day, you're on tour to try to support yourself. And if you're making it harder to support yourself by making it logistically more difficult, well, just for those, that hour and a half or whatever that you get to have the real deal. It's like, if you're in Metallica, go for it. But even they're rumored to have gone digital these days. So who really knows for sure?
Yeah. And to be fair, I didn't go fully from like half stacks on stage to being completely direct to front of house. There was a period of time where I ran the Helix through a power amp through the cab. So it was like best of both worlds kind of situation. But even then, started having issues with the power amp I was using. And I was like, man, I don't like having to troubleshoot any of this stuff. If the difference between me, like I could put my Helix stuff, I can put the quad cortex stuff, can save all of that in a cloud, on a flash drive, whatever, plug it into another one if something goes wrong. I don't want to sit there and troubleshoot which patch cable on my pedal board is, the one that's making this ground sound. Like, I don't want any of that. I want to plug and play. I want to just get on stage and not think about my gear. I want to get on stage and just focus on performing well and being able to share in the experience with the audience a little bit in ways that I used to not be able to because I was too busy tap dancing or trying to make sure that everything's running smoothly, because I was also the playback tech of the band. So I had a lot of hats on at once, and it was just difficult to fully be present during the show because I'm thinking like, okay, I have to cue the next song and change tunings and go to this patch and blah 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 blah. Too much stuff. I just want to stand there and deliver and have fun.
Yeah,
that's the real thing. Have fun.
Yep, absolutely.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations in 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services, and it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. So we've talked about the amp. It's funny, every time I talk to somebody in the heavier scene, it always, when I'm like, tell me about your rig, it never starts with the guitar. It always starts with the amp. And if they run a pedal board, then they go backwards through there. And then eventually we get to the guitars. But what are you playing for guitars?
Yeah, so I'm a artist with a company called Balaguer. Who
Love Balaguer. Yeah, Joe's awesome.
Yeah, custom stuff. They're amazing. I was talking to a couple of companies. I used to be with Ibanez, and I was kind of shopping around to some other companies and sort of just was met with some lukewarm responses like, yeah, we'd be willing to work with you. And I reached out to Balaguer, and they were like, we've been waiting for a long time to receive this message. We love your band. We're so stoked about this. And I was like, cool, that's what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. It's way cooler to be able to work with a company who has their ear to the ground a bit and is not just doing it for the sake of like, oh, here's another person to help market our product, but like we actually enjoy this musician and their band, So
yeah,
they're awesome. I can't say enough good things about them. Currently, I have 3 of their guitars. My main one is an Espada, if you're familiar with that shape. Mm-hmm. It's 28.5-inch scale length, set neck. Currently in it, I believe I have a set of Balaguer Backwoods P90s. It's tuned to drop E, and I'm typically pitch shifting lower than that. It's an amazing guitar. It's very solid. It's beautiful, sturdy as hell. That's my main.
Interesting that you got the P90s in it for that kind of it's not typically what you hear about when somebody's drop tuning like that for whatever reason.
Yeah. It's that's something that goes really far back with me. Is I used to be in a band with a guy when I was a teenager. He was a bit older, but I was a teenager, and he was the gear aficionado. This guy was the first person I'd ever seen to have like a high watt or like a green or Mad Amp, Dr. Z, all these boutique crazy things I'd never seen, I've never heard of. He had all these amps and all these like super rare Gibsons, and we were playing, gosh, it wasn't good. We were playing sort of like bad attack type music at the time.
Okay.
But he was always using weird guitars to play this kind of music. He was either using single coils. He would just play like a Strat and drop C. So he got me playing an American Telly with just the standard single coil Telly bridge pickup. And as a teenager, I always really liked how that sounded. It was unique because everybody else at the time was like, here's my guitar with EMGs. And it just sounds like, you know, like an EMG. So it had this like kind of cool, snarly bite to it. Fast forward, you know, I've been kind of just following the status quo and using humbuckers for a long time, and started to see other bands that we enjoyed a lot, like Loathe or our friends in Thornhill, using P90s in this low, sort of sludgier sound. And I was like, I want to experiment with that. So I picked up a couple guitars that had various things. Like I have a Dan Electro with like a crazy lipstick pickup in it, and a Squier that has P90s in it. And I started messing around with it, and I was like, I really like this. It's cool. It doesn't always fit the vibe correctly. Like in the studio, there's certain parts where I'm like, I think I want the more standard metal sound here. But in general, I'm always looking for ways to like step just a little bit outside of the normal sound that you would expect. So yeah, and Balaguer's P90 is really sick. It's called the Backwoods. I was talking to them about maybe making one. Like, I want to use something, but I don't know if it exists. And they were like, why don't you just try this existing set that we made first? And I'm pretty sure you're going to love it, but try it out first. So they sent it to me, and they were correct. It's really, really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I probably just keep using that. I have another Espada that is like a rustic ash, dark red finish. This is more like my normal guitar. It's a 26.5-inch. I keep that one in drop A sharp. Both of these guitars have Evertunes, kind of staying in line with that. Like, I just want to set it and forget it. I don't want to mess with anything. So that's been incredible, switching to Evertune guitars live and not having to tune during the show. Man, just absolutely game changing.
I still have never lived. I've played guitars with Evertunes, but I've never lived with one. I would like to do that one of these days.
It will change your life, especially for recording. I mean, it's obviously, right? Like, depending on who you're recording with, you know, you're probably going to be tuning your guitar in between every take.
Absolutely.
Just about. And so having an Evertune, just, man, you can really fly through metal guitar tracking with an Evertune. It's like crazy.
What are your other? You got one more Balaguer, I think.
Yeah. It was the first one that they sent me. Actually, it's not a custom. It was a limited production run they did, and it's a growler, which is more like I guess like a Fender Jazzmaster Jaguar type body. Just a black growler, 27 inches, and that one I keep in my sort of weird tuning for like the middle of our catalog, where I was tuning my guitar kind of stupid. No Evertune, so I'm able to like switch between tunings pretty easily.
What do you mean by kind of stupid?
Like the whole guitar is tuned to drop A sharp, but one string is tuned lower.
Okay.
And then sometimes it goes even lower, and then sometimes it actually goes even lower, but everything else is the same. So yeah, I'm assuming people listening to this are going to understand what I mean.
Oh yeah.
Drop A sharp, that's basically C standard with the C dropped to an A sharp. We have songs where that A sharp will go down further to a G sharp, and then songs where it goes down to a G, and then a couple where it goes down to F sharp. So
that's got to be tough to try to get the right gauge that's going to work with all of that on there. That's a big leap.
It is. So that one string on that guitar is substantially thicker than the others, and it's not perfect. Ideally, you know, I'd have a different guitar for each of those, but we realistically only play songs now where I'm in the G version of that tuning.
Okay.
So I don't have to worry about the F sharp one. That was tricky because that's really low.
That's really, yeah.
When that string's F sharp and the next one is F, like you have a major seventh interval between these two strings next to each other. That's crazy. That's like too much. But it does allow you to play the major seventh interval just open chugging, not having to do this like big split thing,
Right.
Just being able to do that. So I thought that was a good idea at the time, and it helped me write a couple songs. But
so it wasn't too bad of an idea then. You got a couple songs out of it.
We did, but I don't think, man, it's been years since we've even played one of those songs live. And yeah, I'm not sure if you're familiar with our newest stuff, but the most successful song we've ever had is just came out. It's called Antimatter. And the chorus, the big part of that song is just me playing the open string, like open. There's like no riff to it at all. And
just
it seems to be the most well received thing we've ever made, and I'm just going da 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 da, no left hand at all. So all those years of me tuning the guitar all crazy and doing all this, and now we just shoot it straight up the middle, and everybody likes it. It's like,
no, you just cool. All right, fine. Oh, hey, yeah. whatever, right?
It's fun to play. I'll say that much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's still to this day, it's incredible if you look at, like, especially some artists in the country scene or whatever. It's like, wow, we really still are getting a long ways with these cowboy chords. Like, really, really are filling up stadiums with cowboy chords still. It's kind of wild.
There's this whole new thing that I was really unaware of until recently. There's like this like new genre that's kind of like country hip hop mashup, sort of like
yeah they've been trying to do that for a while. It's taken off in some ways. It's kind of weird.
I agree. It's kind of bizarre. I don't know how I feel about it entirely. Granted, I'm not much of a country fan to begin with, but then hearing it with like trap hi-hats and like more hip hop rap adjacent samples and stuff going on, but the singer has like a twang and is talking about like whiskey and stuff. Like, this doesn't quite feel correct, but who am I to say? Who am I?
Well, I'm a big country fan. I kind of go all over the place, but I grew up with outlaw country and stuff, so I'm a big fan of country music, and it hasn't really been on the radio in a long time, in my opinion. Listeners are very aware of my rather my stance on that. We'll just put it at that.
Okay.
But and I love metal, I love punk, I love heavy music. And the other day, I'm not going to name the group mostly because I don't remember who they were, but also I don't like publicly bashing anyone in particular. But I heard a group that attempted to merge country, like straight up country, or actually not straight up country, more like modern country, and metalcore. And it was as bad as you think it was.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was. It hurt my soul.
Yeah,
I was like, don't take two things that I love and try to ruin both of them. Like, don't do that to me. It was it was a lot. I'm sure I'm gonna run into these people at some point and I've been like, well, I heard what you said. No, probably not. I probably will never see them. But yeah, it was a rough thing for my body.
That's why we don't name names.
That's why we're not naming names. It could be anyone. I could be talking about anybody right now, or nobody. Maybe I made that whole thing up. It's definitely possible.
Yeah, but I feel you. At the same time, though, like, I feel like you have to experiment, right? And some of the coolest things ever are definitely born from just taking two disparate things and putting them together. And so, while I agree with you, I think on principle, like it's maybe a good thing that it was tried. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to love that, though. Honestly,
that's the thing. At the end of the day, like, who am I? I'm some dude in a shed in Oregon. Who cares? Like, it's not for me. That's fine. It's for somebody else. That's okay.
Yeah, as I get older, I get more. I get better at adopting that perspective, for sure. Because not everything is for everybody, and that's fine.
Well, and then some of the things that I like, I can't be mad at the general public for not accepting some of like the more extreme things that I'm into. You know, like
Yeah,
because even for me, some of this was an acquired taste. So the fact that my mom doesn't want to hear dudes screaming over chuggy riffs, I'm not upset at my mom because that's not what she's into, you know?
yeah, of course, yeah. I think, yeah, that's actually a good point, is that a lot of the stuff that we're interested in as maybe metal guys or whatever is kind of an acquired taste. And I don't know. It also seems like the whole world of music is evolving towards our acquired tastes. Like, when I was a little kid, the really heavy stuff that I was listening to was like Megadeth
Mm-hmm.
and Metallica. And I had no idea that, at the time, really don't think anything that much heavier existed. And I guess maybe Meshuggah. Meshuggah's been doing Meshuggah for
Sugar. I mean,
30 years now.
That's the thing. Like that stuff, I think we're probably in the ballpark of the same age. Yeah, I'm 35.
Mhm.
So things existed, but there was no way we were going to have access to them, right?
Mhm.
We heard Megadeth and Metallica on the radio and from somebody's older brother or something, but and Cannibal Corpse existed, but there's no way we would have known that until much later.
Yeah.
You know, that was obviously way heavier, and there were thousands of people listening to that band, but I didn't know they existed.
Right.
So
How different would my life be if I was listening to Meshuggah when I was 7 instead of Metallica? Probably pretty different.
Probably so.
I
That's
think
a good
so. I
point.
mean, it would have saved me a lot of time. I would have started to develop that sort of affinity for complicated polyrhythmic stuff much sooner. I guess it's just a matter of like when I was exposed to it. But
That's a good point. You know, I didn't even get into that stuff until more into my early teens. So thinking back, it's weird how our experiences as kids really do shape us. And I'm just strictly speaking about music. Like obviously everything that happens to you when you're a kid, it impacts you. But if you had heard Meshuggah or something at 7, or if I had, the question is, would I have been ready for it? Or would I have been like, whoa, this is too much for my brain. I don't like this, and not listen to it ever again.
yeah, that's also a very good point. Going from For Whom the Bell Tolls to Bleed would have been pretty crazy. It would have been probably too much. You're right.
It's weird. Maybe not. Maybe that's the thing that we always would have been into, but I feel like it's probably more a result of things compounding on each other. I remember when I first heard Linkin Park in the radio, and I was like, I didn't know people could scream in music.
I was just thinking about Linkin Park, like on the topic of, blending two things together that, maybe don't go together. But man, talk about the like ultimate example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Still one of my favorite bands. I just listened to their first 2 records the other day on a little road trip I was taking. And I was like, man, even though I'm almost 20 years old, not 20 years older than when I first heard it, it still hits just about the same. Like, man,
yeah.
it really held up, and it's still cool. If a band came out now where the dude was like rapping and that other guy was like, I would be like, this is kind of whack. But this band somehow nailed it all that time. Like, man, genius.
Well, that's the first time I can remember hearing down-tuned guitars and understanding that that's what it was. Well, I didn't understand what it was at first. I had to figure it out. But
yeah,
hearing a drop-tuned guitar, I mean, yes, Korn I was aware of, but that was like so much different that I knew that I don't know what those guys are doing, but they're doing something weird with their guitars. Yeah. Linkin Park, I could still recognize it as a guitar riff, but down. And
sure.
and like just knowing that it was possible for somebody to scream like that and it was going to be on the radio just blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind.
Yeah,
I couldn't
game
believe what I
changing
was
for
hearing.
sure. So sick. Love that band.
I think for a lot of us, you know, I mean, when Chester died, I was, you know, sometimes celebrities die, and it's always a bummer when anyone passes, but I was shocked at how much Chester's death affected me. Like it hit me right in the gut. And every time I think about it, I get like a little bit upset. It's crazy. I never knew him.
I think, not that I'm the authority on this or anything, but I think he really was like one of the voices of our generation of like music listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Like his whole band, but just like that guy's voice, I think so many people recognize that. Like, even if you aren't like the biggest Linkin Park fan, like everybody knows In the End.
Oh yeah.
Like so recognizable and so sad. Like, yeah, I remember where we were actually. We were on Warped Tour, playing in Indianapolis. And I remember being backstage and somebody broke the news to the rest of us. It's just a bunch of band guys and crew people, and everybody was just so heartbroken and somber. And the rest of that day, everybody that went on stage was like dedicating their whole set to them. And it was, it's crazy, man. It's too sad. It's so tragic.
It really is. And it shows you, like, I think we need to do a better job. And I think we do. I say we as in like the general public, of trying to recognize those things that, well, I think we just kind of took Linkin Park for granted, you know, for all those years until he passed. It was like, oh yeah, Linkin Park, they're a huge band. Cool. But a lot of us, I don't think, fully processed how much impact, especially in like the metal scene or whatever, how much that helped get us into this. Some of it's like what we do for a living now is partially because that band exposed so many people to a more extreme version of music that they didn't know they were even allowed to like.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we all owe them a lot for various reasons, you know, whether it's just like you said, the general awareness amongst the public that this is a viable source of, you know, the viable thing to do musically. And also for the rest of us who make music, they're the ultimate, to me, like boundary pushing act.
Yeah.
And they're still like one of my biggest influences for sure.
Well, we've talked about some of your other ones. So, but like who these days do you find really inspiring?
Yeah. So I've always been a very big Deftones guy.
Oh yeah.
Particularly like mid 2000s Deftones. I mean, I like all of it, but everything from like Saturday Night to about Cornel Jokin are my favorite records, like my favorite era from them. Scratch that. Let's put Self-Titled in there as well.
Of course.
But yeah, these days, honestly, not a whole lot of metal. Whenever I am listening to music, it's like some of our contemporaries, you know, Spirit Box, friends of ours, Thornhill, Loathe are one of my favorites. Really, really cool. Another band
great.
That's just like all of those bands really are just they kind of, I think, embody the same sort of energy that Linkin Park has, in that they're sort of genre bending, you know, and not afraid to step out of the normal confines of what metal or metalcore is. And so I always find myself sort of attracted to things like that, where the artist is able to take a step out of the little box, you know, that we might be put in. Aside from that, though, man, I don't know. I feel like I'm not listening to a lot of music currently because I'm trying to just make a lot.
Yep.
And so I'll go through phases where I'm sort of like in research and development mentally, and that's when I'm listening to a lot of stuff. And really, I'm kind of just going down the Spotify rabbit hole and listening to like drum and bass, or I'm listening to like like ambient music or really crazy jazz type. I'm just a lot of times reaching out for ideas or inspiration. And then my go-tos are like Glassjaw.
I love Glassjaw.
Yeah, I actually, to a lot of people, that's interesting because they're very, very different from my band. But they're one of my favorites. They have an EP called Coloring Book. I don't know if you're familiar with that. That's like maybe one of my favorite pieces of music ever, because that's another thing where it's like, what genre is this?
Right.
I have no clue. I've never heard anything else like it. But yeah, those are sort of my normal rotations. Also just like kind of expanding my horizons now and listening to some more recent hip hop stuff. I don't know. I'm always really bad when people are like, what are you listening to? Because I get in the car and I open up Spotify and I'm like, boom, 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 just like queuing up all this stuff. But then when they're like, what are you listening to? I'm like, for the past 2 days, I've been listening to this minute of a song that I've been working on repeat. And it's all I can think about. Yeah. I need to get better at getting out of the chair, getting out of the lab and just like walking and listening to music. I get so tunnel vision when I'm working on stuff that I can't think of any other music that exists right now. Linkin Park, geez, man, like revisiting that rabbit hole. I'm just realizing now how good they are as a band and how much of that comes from sheer simplicity. Coming from like, I don't know how familiar you are with some of our old stuff, but like, man, I used to just write riffs, just like the most complicated, noodly doodly, going for it, blah, 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 just like ADHD riffs. And when you listen to Linkin Park, it's like their guitar player is playing a 2-bar phrase on repeat for like 30 seconds. And it works. So sick. It's so sick. It's so much cooler than anything I've ever written. And it's the beauty of it is just how simple it is. And like, that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand is how difficult it is to write something great that's simple. That is hard.
I think that's a lot of the hip hop influence in them. You know, like if you listen to, I'm not the biggest hip hop listener, but I'm getting more and more into it as I get older, which seems counterintuitive probably to some people. But if you listen to a lot of it, now don't get me wrong, some of it's very complex, but the basis of it is providing a beat and a section of music for somebody to rap over. That's what it is. And if you listen to Linkin Park, the music itself feels like it's meant to give Mike and Chester the chance to do their things, like more like showcase what they're doing than actually like, look how shreddy I am. It's just like provide a good base for them to shine on. I mean, maybe, I don't know. It's not like I've interviewed the guys and have intimate knowledge of their process, but that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, no, that is for sure their approach. I mean, I've read interviews with their guitarist, Brad, talking about how he wants to play guitar like a sampler. And
interesting.
I mean, he does and it's not to say that he's like repetitive or boring. It's just to say that when their music is composed in like blocks, which is really cool and inspiring for me because I think the way that a lot of metal guitar players write music is like sitting here at my computer. I'm going to open up my DAW. I'm going to noodle for a little bit. Okay, maybe that's something I like. I'm going to program the drums and I'm just going to start going and going and going. Not necessarily always thinking like, okay, but there's a singer in my band. He needs space to do the thing that everybody in the audience understands. Not everybody in the audience understands all of this stuff, but they do understand words. And that's going to be the thing that really speaks to them. So I think that approach of like keeping the music very simple and as like a nice bed is, honestly, it sounds funny, but to me, it's kind of a new concept. Because for the longest time, I was always like, people like our band because we're like complicated metal, but then the vocals are also unique in a way. And now I'm realizing like we should really just be like leaning into the vocal and writing in such a way that doesn't really put any of the musicians in the forefront, but is more just like really, really solid foundation with a cool vibe, you know? And so that's kind of what I've been doing recently, is trying to write with that in mind. But again, coming from my background of sitting here and writing riffs and everything, if I was to, you know, just for example, if I was sitting here and I came up with the riff of One Step Closer and I'm just like, bah, 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 bah. Am I going to be stoked sitting here playing that like on a loop by myself? I'm probably like, this needs more stuff, but it really doesn't. It doesn't need anything else. So yeah, there's definitely an acquired ability that I'm working on cultivating, which is like, stop adding incessantly. Like, just take a back seat, let the vocals sort of take center stage, and really just dive into the sound design and the production more, and let the guitar be less of something that I have to like do, you know?
Mm-hmm. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby, because let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
Well, it makes sense, though. You're sitting there by yourself, and the goal is to make the coolest sounding thing you can, generally speaking. It doesn't necessarily sound that cool if One Step Closer was just that riff over and over again with nothing else. It's a sick riff, but it would be dumb if that's all it was.
Sure.
So you have to try to write these things and imagine what the other people might do with it. And that's harder than just making it sound cool to you in your bedroom. Like,
right.
You can fill it out and just like make it the biggest, heaviest sounding, and then there's not space for everybody to do their own thing. But it's really hard to try to imagine what the other people in the band are going to do before they do it.
Right. And I guess that's really just sort of stepping more into a producer type role as well, instead of just being like, I'm the guitar guy, I'm going to write guitar riffs. It's like, no, how do I sort of leave a space for everything? And it's difficult, and I'm definitely not super great at it, but it's fun to try. And luckily everybody in my band is sick and very talented, and we have a really, really awesome producer who we work with that has definitely made me better at songwriting and producing just by being near him. So yeah, fortunately I don't have to do everything, it's nice to be able to just like be the initial idea guy, and sometimes we use those things, and other times the stuff that we use gets written in the span of like 1 hour at our producer studio. And we're just like, wow, where did this song come from? Okay, cool. Not going to complain. Let's just roll with it.
It's the best feeling when that happens. When it's
They're the
when
best
you're flowing.
songs too.
Oh,
the best
so
songs
good.
Happen so fast.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard it or not. I know you checked out some snippets of the show, but the intro music that plays right after the intro, and then there's a small chunk of music. It's just a super simple riff. What that is my old band. We were in the studio, and we had done usually the songs were written by me or one of the other guys. It was kind of split 50-50. And then we would bring it to the band and we'd spice it up from there. But the meat and potatoes was written by one of us independently. This one was actually like it was composed completely differently. The guitarist took, like, the drummer wrote all the words. The other guitarist that doesn't do a lot of writing took and made like kind of the chord structure, and it was like really like a big melting pot of stuff. But when we got done, we're like, this song means a lot to us, but it's kind of boring. Like, it just goes and goes and goes, and there's not a lot of dynamics to it. And all of a sudden, I just come up with that riff, that da 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 da, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't fit the song really at all. It kind of just punches you in the face out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And it was like, we were like, oh, that did it. That fixed the song. It's not boring anymore. Because it's just that block, though, that you hear in the intro. I just cut it out and used it for my intro music for the last 8 years or whatever.
Sick.
But yeah. Sometimes that's how it happened. We were like, what are we going to do? We're going to have to scrap this song. But it's lyrically very important to us. So how do we not scrap the song? And I just was like, I did that. And we're like, that's it. That's what we need. It took about 30 seconds, and it's a good feeling. It's a really nice feeling.
Yeah, that's, man, it's the best feeling. And I think that, I don't know, there's something to be said about that. Are you familiar with Melissa Cross? You know who that is?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Melissa Cross has this.
Actually, for the listeners, I'll let you explain who she is a little bit.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with her, she's like the vocal coach for metal, hardcore, hard rock vocalists.
Has been forever.
Yeah, she's known as the Scream Queen. She basically will teach people how to safely and effectively vocalize for more hard, aggressive styles of music. So she works with our band. Our singer Garrett and her work pretty closely together, and she's amazing. Love her, sweet woman. Everybody in the metal world knows her and loves her. And if you don't know who she is and you are in that world, I don't know how you don't know her. But she has this analogy about vocalizing, which is like, you can't do something if you're thinking about it. You have to just do it. If you're thinking about doing the thing, like, oh, here comes my guitar solo, I better run through it in my head really. You need to be like not in that frame of mind. You need to be present in your body, but not thinking about what's happening. She talks about how, like, you think people playing football are like thinking about every little move. No, those are like trained motions, muscle memory, like instinctual awareness of what's going on. So anyways, all that to say, her talking about not thinking and just doing, I feel like you coming up with that 30 seconds riff is like an example of that, where the coolest thing happens when you're not even trying to. And that's been my experience with writing music, is like, I've spent literally 6 months on the first 10 seconds of a song and show somebody else, and within a minute they're like, what if it does this? And I'm like, well, cool. I just wasted 6 months of my life on this intro, and you came up with the correct thing to go there very quickly because you weren't thinking, you were just like reacting. And so I sound so hypocritical talking about how that's the way to write when I sit in here and just listen to the same minute of music on repeat for days and days, like obsessive and can't take my own advice. But yeah, that's been my experience, is like when you're not even trying to, the coolest thing happens. And then it just makes it all worth it. Makes all of the hyper-focused, annoyed, stressed out, not sleeping states worth it, I think. Yeah.
I get it, though. I mean, I don't think you get those aha moments without putting in a ton of work in other places, though. You can't not think and do unless you've done the reps. You know, that's why football players don't have to think about it, because they've trained their whole life to do that.
Yeah, and you know, if you're a guitar player, you know, hopefully you've done your reps and you've practiced and you understand the instrument enough to know that, like, when you hear da 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 da, you know how to play that, and you don't need to like sit and figure it out. You're just like, oh, I had this idea, and it's these notes of the scale of the key of the song that we're in, so it should be, yep, that's it, and there you go. Yeah,
well, I have to sit and figure everything out because my brain's not very good, but I get what you're saying. I'm like, is that drop Z? I don't know what that is. Let me just fumble around on the fretboard until I figure it out.
Sure.
But yeah, it does. It comes from the time, you know, and even just like how to get your idea. Like, I hear it in my head. How do I get this idea to my fretboard? You don't do that without sitting down with the guitar and obsessing over parts for hours and hours and hours. That's the only way. So you don't really get one without the other, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, we're approaching the end of the episode, and I got 2 classic questions I like to wrap these up on. But before I do, I like to give the guests the chance to take the stage, you know, shout out your grandma, plug anything you want to plug. You're talking to a couple thousand people right now, so the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah. Plug my grandma for sure. No, let's see. I have to plug Neural DSP for having us on board. We're about to be Quad Cortex users, so shout out to them. Shout out to Balaguer. If you're unfamiliar with their guitars or basses, you should check them out. If you're looking for something custom, I really wouldn't recommend any other company other than them. They're just amazing. Let's see. Silent Planet has a record coming out on November 3rd.
Ooh.
It's called Super Bloom. Very excited about that. I think it's our best work yet. I'm sure everybody says that about every record that they have coming out, but I think it's leaps and bounds above where we used to be as a band. I'm very excited for people to hear it. I mentioned at the start of this episode a secret tour that I can't give any information about. However, I can say that it is in January in America, and that's all I can say. But that's happening. Yeah, we're writing and hoping to just start releasing. Well, you know, the album's coming out, but then after that, the goal is to just release music a lot more frequently in smaller batches and keep things interesting and keep the story of our band moving a bit quicker than just waiting 2 years for another record, waiting 3 years for another record. So, yeah. And shout out to you for having me. This has been really fun.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, dude. Thank you for coming on and taking the time. This has been great. Yeah. All right. So, final classic questions. My brain turned off there for a second. I was like, what am I saying? Where am I? Wow, that was weird. Classic questions. Here we go. First one. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
Oh, man. Probably the OC5.
Oh, the OC5.
Yeah.
What do you like about the OC5?
I bought it when I was during COVID. I was on a bit of a jazz guitar kick, and I was watching people like Kurt Rosenwinkel or Gilad Hexelman playing solo guitar and using this octave pedal to basically only affect the lower register of their guitar, so that when they're doing really crazy voicings, they can still have a thumb or a finger down low to play the bass note. And so, just in recent memory, that's the most I've used a Boss pedal that I've ever owned. I guess maybe back in the day it would have been like the DD3 or something, just a classic. But yeah, the OC5 is really cool, and I use it often at home.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time anybody's pulled the OC5. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, I mean, what do people normally say? The HM2 or like the chorus or
the tuner? That's definitely the most popular answer. I usually depending on who it is, I'll usually press for another answer, but that is the most popular answer, is the tuner.
That's yeah. I mean, it's pretty standard.
Mm-hmm.
I get it.
It revolutionized things. It's important. I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was it was certainly the first mass adopted pedal tuner.
Mm-hmm.
And also you can throw it off a building and it's still probably going to work. So
yeah.
Shout out to the mighty TU2 as well. All right. Final question. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, man, I'm going to get some flack for this. I love pizza. I'll eat any kind of pizza. For starters, I will eat any kind. I'm not like a snob. However, my favorite kind of pizza, I'm a pineapple person. I do it.
You admitted it publicly. Wow.
I do it, yeah. I mean, I understand that on paper that sounds disgusting and bizarre and weird, but it's just, I don't know. I love it. I also frick with peanut butter on it. I don't know if you've ever done that.
Not on pizza. I did it on burgers before, but I've never done it on pizza.
Oh, peanut butter and jelly burger is also chef's kiss. But
yeah, doesn't sound good, but it is. It somehow is. Yeah,
that's how pineapple on pizza is for me. And I understand that. I think I'm probably in the minority of people who enjoy that, but I love it. Sorry.
No, you're not. I've done this podcast for a long time, and I've asked that question since I think episode 40 or 60. We're on like 380 or so now.
Wow. Nice.
It's about 50-50, really? I have to say. Yeah. It feels
what do people normally say?
It depends. You know, there's some people that are like pizza connoisseurs, and I find that I'm a little more in that ballpark. Not like an expert by any means, but I definitely can get a little snobby about my pizza. But you know, it really varies. Really varies more than you would expect. I'm still waiting for the person to be like, I don't even like pizza.
Oh, I got one for you.
That.
I got one for you. He's not a guitar player though, so
that like actively would choose almost anything else other than pizza. Like, really? That's wild.
My drummer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's tough. That's got to be tough on the road.
He also doesn't drink coffee.
Doesn't like ever?
Doesn't like it.
He doesn't like it.
Yeah. That's a rarity among, I mean, I feel like it's got to be something like at least 70-80% of like the world is addicted to caffeine or coffee.
Now, admittedly, when I switched to this job, I got to make, mostly my own hours for the most part. And my coffee consumption went way, 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 way down. Like, I'll have it once in a while. But the nice thing about that is once you reduce your caffeine consumption down to where you just have it occasionally, when you have it, it works like really, really well.
Yeah, that's true.
Woo! Here we go.
Yeah,
it's better all of a sudden.
I've done a little bit of like a caffeine detox, or not detox, but cessation from caffeine for. Mm-hmm. I did it for like about a month earlier this year, but it wasn't because I don't like coffee. It was just because I was curious what life would be like without it. And coming back to it, I had the realization that you had, like, holy, this actually does something to you when you're not doing it every day. Mm-hmm. But no, my drummer just doesn't like it.
Doesn't like pizza, doesn't like coffee. What What?
What kind of musician is that?
I don't understand.
Like metal musicians, that was our life for a long time. Like the venue's going to pay you in Little Caesars cheese pizza, and we have to have coffee to wake up and not be groggy and have a headache. So he's really he's breaking the mold, I guess.
What does he like? Is there that's almost like serial killer territory, I feel like.
I'll tell you said that. He likes Chinese food.
Okay, all right.
He's like a ramen guy. I guess he likes Asian food.
I do. I'm down with it. Yeah.
Me too. I just the no pizza, no coffee thing is pretty rare amongst touring musicians. I think
it's pretty rare in general, just flat out pretty rare.
I think so.
But especially amongst this population. Does he do caffeine at all though? Does he do like energy drinks or?
No, I mean he'll drink tea from time to time, but he's not like a caffeine person.
And that I can understand too. My wife's really sensitive to it. She doesn't love like strong coffee. I mean, that said, there's a coffee shop in Nashville that both of us are obsessed with, and
Which one is that?
Barista Parlor.
Oh, BP. Yeah, I live in Nashville. I'm here right now. So.
Oh, you are? Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, Nashville is my home away from home. I go there several times a year.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So have to say hi.
Next time you're here, BP.
Yeah,
but I'll leave my drummer at home.
Okay. Yeah, I love Barista Parlor. I think about it all the time. So good.
Sweet.
Love that place.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to talk about Nashville a little bit over on Patreon. Does that work for you?
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. Perfect.
Well, thank you for hanging out. I really appreciate it, and thank you to the listeners for getting this far. I appreciate all of you for taking all the time. It really means a lot. All right, everybody. My name is Blake, and for Mitch, as always, folks, good luck and good tones. There you go, people. There you have it. There's another episode in the can, and of course, we got into it on Patreon. You know we did. That's how we do every week. So if you would like extra bonus episodes coming directly to your ears, slide over to patreon.com/tonemob, and for $5 a month, you will get access to all of those bonus episodes, including all the ones from years and years ago. Those are all over there too. And you will also get access to the ad-free feed for the same price. So please slide over there and check it out if you can. It seriously helps out so much. And if you can't, I get it. But please, I know I beg for this every single week, but please share this with a friend. Share this with somebody that you think might enjoy it. That's what keeps this show going. That's what makes this all possible. Thank you to everybody who has ever done that. And thank you to everyone who has supported the show in any way, shape, or form. Thank you very much. I appreciate you. And I will talk to you on the internet very soon. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hey, this is Dewey Halpus, host of Peer Pleasure on the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Join me each week as I explore another long-form conversation with one of your favorite musicians, actors, comedians, or creatives. From Chino Moreno of the Deftones, John Gorley of Portugal the Man, to Fat Mike from NoFX and Ian MacKaye from Fugazi and Minor Threat, we go all over the map. From Fall Out Boy to Slayer, Peer Pleasure has it all. Check us out now on Sound Talent Media.
Hi, I'm Daniela Clark.
I'm Barbara Ann Wild.
And we are the Honest AF Show.
Our podcast is real, honest conversation with our celebrity friends and pros.
Covering our anything but average rock and roll lifestyles.
All while tackling the hell that is aging and the battle of beauty.
Oh yeah, nothing is off the table.
The Honest AF Show is available wherever you get your podcasts.